Webiters. The next big topic on the Webit stage is the future of work and education, with a keynote about equal employment opportunities for achieving the SDGs. Give a round of applause for our next speaker, the Commissioner of the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, Keith Sonderling.
Okay, hello everyone. Nice to see everyone. You may be wondering why a regulator from Washington, D.C., in my Washington, D.C. suit, is here in Europe to talk to a bunch of innovators, founders, venture capitalists, and tech people. Well, since I've been at the United States Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and what that is in the U.S., we're the premier civil rights regulator in the U.S. So when you think about the Me Too movement, when you think about pay equity, pregnancy discrimination, age discrimination, all the big ticket items that have now made it to corporate boardrooms is what my agency enforces in the United States. So since I've been there, I've really been taking a look at the use of technology to help further companies' goals to have a diverse and inclusive workforce. So my agency's mission is to prevent and remedy discrimination, but it's also to promote equal opportunity for all in the workplace. And I know that's sort of been a theme of this conference, talking about equal opportunity. So with technology, you probably think I'm going to start talking about the dystopian future of robot armies replacing human workers. When you think of artificial intelligence in the workplace, what do you think about, right? You think about those statistics from the World Economic Forum, where 85 million jobs might be replaced by artificial intelligence, or by the year 2025, robots and humans might be working in the same amount of hours. So you've gotten all those scary statistics. You're also hearing about robots and how robot orders are up 40% from the year before, and it might be cheap to do that. There's some studies that show $10,000 US dollars is all it's going to cost to replace workers with robots now. So all those scary statistics are out there, and that very well may be the future of employment and AI, but for now, what I'm raising awareness of is the use of AI in the workplace and anti-discrimination law, which is happening right now. So whether you're aware of it or not, and the pandemic has certainly increased employers' use of these technologies, companies are using AI at every stage of the job life cycle. AI creates job descriptions, it recruits candidates, it interviews candidates, it picks who will get the opportunities, it can determine what that proper salary is for that candidate, it evaluates workers' performance, picks who gets those new upskilling and reskilling opportunities, and nowadays, if an employee falls short of expectation, an algorithm may even send them a message saying, "You're fired." So we're really seeing AI across all businesses, and when you think about AI being used in other business lines like manufacturing or delivery, it's a good thing because it's helping businesses save a lot of money and time and effort and resources by being more efficient and economically efficient as well. But when it comes to automating certain functions in human resources in my space, it's a different story. And that's because a lot of these computer developers who are now looking to HR and saying, well, what's the biggest problem with human resources, right? Bias. Bias in employment decision-making, the reason my agency exists in the United States. Well, what happens if we can get rid of the human from human resources, creating all that bias, and just have that being automated? And as you'll hear, there's a lot of pros and cons to that, but when you're trying to automate functions related to people's livelihoods, their ability to make a living, you're dealing with some of the most fundamental civil rights we have. And that's the ability to enter and thrive in the workplace. But that's really, for a long time, people have been prevented from getting opportunities in the workplace based upon where they're from, based upon their religion, based upon a disability, based upon their gender. But artificial intelligence, if it's carefully designed and properly used, and let me repeat that, if it is carefully designed and properly used, it can eliminate bias. And how can it do that? Well, a computer isn't racist. A computer doesn't know how to discriminate. A computer can be programmed to disregard variables that have nothing to do with an applicant's ability to perform a job. So think about it. A name. What does a name tell you about an applicant? About their ability to do the job? Nothing, right? What it does tell you is about their gender, their national origin, potentially their religion, or other characteristics that have nothing to do with the job. And there's plenty of studies in the United States that show a male resume and a female resume with the same exact qualifications. The male gets picked more often than the female. Or African Americans or Asian Americans in the United States who whiten their resume, and what do I mean by that? They delete all associational references towards their national origin or where they're from, are more likely to get picked than if they actually left that on. So AI can be programmed to disregard those factors that have nothing to do with a candidate's actual job performance, such as those protected characteristics. Now companies are using AI to do interviews, and that could be a good thing because think about the bias at the earliest stages of an interview. Somebody who's interviewing you can see that you're of a certain gender, of certain national origin, a certain religion, that you're disabled, right? Or you're pregnant. And in the back of their mind, they may be saying to themselves, even though it's illegal to do so, this person's going to cost me. They're disabled, so I'm going to have to give them accommodation. She's pregnant, so she's going to take leave right as soon as she gets the job. I'm just going to go with somebody else who doesn't have those who won't make those requests, and we'll never know why. But artificial intelligence can be programmed to eliminate all those barriers. But at the same time, if it is poorly designed or carelessly implemented, it can scale discrimination larger than any one individual hiring manager. That's because, like I said earlier, AI doesn't have any intentions of its own. It's all about what's programmed. It's all about what's in the data set. So inaccurate, incomplete, or unrepresentative data sets will only amplify rather than minimize employment decisions based on those characteristics. And one of the most now infamous examples is a company went to a resume screening program that promised to help that company with their diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts by diversifying their workforce. And they went and they gave, here are my top performers. Go find me the best performers based on my current employees in this position. So the computer ran machine learning, and it says the most likely indicators of success at that firm is being named Jared and having played high school lacrosse. And in America, that is a pretty typical, when you think of somebody named Jared in high school lacrosse, it's somebody who's very white, who comes from a very affluent background. So like I said earlier, it's being used at all stages of the job lifecycle. So for instance, the example I said about using natural language processing for interviews. So a company interviews an employee all on an app, and the company doesn't see what the employee looks like, but they take the voice transcript of that employee, and they see the words and the way they speak and the way they answer the questions that determine that employee's ability to do that job. Now, that's a really good thing because it goes on their actual merit to do the job. But if it is not properly designed and doesn't account, for instance, say a foreign accent, somebody from a different country may score lower because the computer can't recognize that voice, unlike somebody else who didn't say as good as words, but the computer was able to recognize them. And that's really important as companies are starting to use facial recognition technologies, which we know there's a lot of discussion on regulating. So there's programs out there, because everything is virtual now, that will look at a candidate's face during a job interview and tell you the characteristics of that candidate based on the way they smile, based on when they look in the camera. And whether employers want to do that and use that technology, that's up to them. But whether it discriminates is a bigger problem. For instance, facial expressions are not universal. So for a good salesperson, maybe in America, the sign is to smile, but maybe somewhere else in Europe, you don't smile. And if you're being judged on that, that could be national origin discrimination. Or if somebody's disabled and can't smile, then obviously that's disability discrimination. That's even if the computer can see applicants. The dominant facial recognition programs, white men they could see 99% of the time, where dark-skinned females, they can only see between 65 to 74% of the time. So think about that. If you're a white man, you start here. If you're a dark-skinned female, you start here. So much for equal opportunity through new software. So my raising awareness of this to all of you is as you're buying these programs, as you're implementing them, as you're investing in them, they need to be developed and deployed with our long-standing ethics and civil rights laws in order for them to help eliminate discrimination, help eliminate that human bias, instead of amplifying it and scaling it to areas we've never seen before. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate you listening. Take care. Look this way.